You want to be healthier or more fit or to have a certain job or dream lifestyle. But what choice do you have except to be who you are and what your mind sees you as being? How can you be anything else? Welcome to the Wellness Champion Podcast, sponsored by Healthy Transformation Nation. We believe that your health and wellness is determined by your own self-care more than anything else. Join us for each episode when we discover and uncover the keys to self-care in today's complex culture. We enjoy helping others discover the best ways to be well. We'll be visiting the basics for self-care and ongoing wellness that enables you to not only survive, but to thrive. Wellness Champion Podcast.
Everything we are, all we can be, involves choices. Your mind, your consciousness, and your body. These are three things that we conceptualize separately. Your mind is analytical, logical, and your intellectual center. Your center for reason. Consciousness is your interpretation of what's going on around you. It's your perception. It's your translation of the world. Your body is the physical manifestation of you. It's the part of you that gives sensory input and powers that translation to your mind and consciousness.
When I quit smoking, I used my mind, my body, and my consciousness all together to accomplish it. And this is how it was done. Basically, I decided in my mind that I preferred to breathe in fresh air as opposed to smoke. And I knew this because, I decided that because I knew that my body was being damaged by the smoke that I was inhaling. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to make a conscious decision to quit smoking. And I did it by simply conceptualizing the fact that the fresh air coming in was better for my body than the smoke that I was inhaling when I would smoke a cigarette. And I committed to this on a conscious level. So I made a conscious, that's what we mean by conscious decision. I made a conscious decision to quit smoking. And I was successful at it. It worked. Now, this is back in, I think it was like 1993 or 94. Yeah. You know? And I haven't smoked since. Right. So it's been 30 years since I quit smoking, and I haven't touched it since. So it's that powerful. That consciousness is so powerful.
I love that because for me, because I quit smoking too right around the same time that you did too, it was, for me, it really was literally the air that I was taking in. Was that more important than the smoke? Because for me, it was a severe health situation where I was using my inhaler 3 to 4 times a day just to smoke. And I wasn't using my inhaler before that unless it was triggered by weather, like if I was running in the cold weather at the time. And this is, like we said, it was back in the early 90s. And I made a strict, conscious decision. I said, this is it. I'm done. I've had enough. I want to breathe. And it's not worth it. It's not worth me needing to use drugs, medication, just to be able to smoke a cigarette. It made no sense to me. And when I made the decision, it wasn't like, well, I can always go back, or, I'm just quitting for now. Or it was like, this is never happening again. It was kind of like drawing the line in the sand, and that is it. No more, nothing, not happening ever again. And I never did. I was very serious about this. I wasn't wishy-washy. I said, this is it. It was my decision, and I owned it. And I am so grateful that I made that decision, just like you, because the air that we breathe is very, very important. And if we're not getting that breath into our bodies every single day, and I'm not talking about just the regular breathing, that's to start with, but even breath work, it's so much harder to do when you are smoking cigarettes, especially for someone that is allergic to it like me and having asthma at the time. It's debilitating. Yeah. And so that breath was very important. And I'm like you. I'm so glad that we both decided to end that journey of our life.
That decision that you make when you're committing to something like that on a conscious level, that's where we find out how powerful the consciousness is.
Yeah.
And when mind, body, and consciousness are all working together, that's a beautiful thing. In fact, whether you do it on purpose or not, your mind, body, and consciousness oftentimes will work together. And it's whether you're mindful of it or not, it's still happening. So there are basically those three things are the keys to your human experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're the keys to your existence.
They are.
When your mind, your body, and your consciousness are aligned and operating together in unison, that's where incredible things seem to happen. And your consciousness itself is the most powerful force in that. And in the example of when we quit smoking, we actually, in our consciousness, that's where we saw ourselves. That's where we saw the kind of person that we were going to be. That we saw the image of ourselves not in that old narrative, but in a new narrative.
Right. Absolutely.
And we can obviously. We could apply this to anything. We can apply this to anything that we want to change about ourselves, whether it's how we eat or what we do or don't do,
what
or
we think about,
habits, what we think about,
what we don't think, what we choose not to think about, because all of these things impact our lives on such an incredible level, if you're not in alignment, it really, your life very much feels out of balance. And I lived like that for a long time, so I know that, and I see it in my clients' lives when they're out of balance. It's clear because there's something that isn't in alignment, and it's usually something that we're working on within ourselves, and we're kind of giving ourselves that message through these lessons that we put ourselves through over and over again.
Yeah. And a key thing that I think you just brought up was choices. The choices that you make are so important. It's all about choices, right? We have choices every day, all day long. And, free will is part of the human design. It's part of the grand design. We've been given free will. What a gift.
It is a gift. And a lot of times I don't think we realize what that truly means. The freedom to really create the life that you want to live and the life that you want to see happen for you. I know I had said things when I was younger. I wanted very specific things in my life, and they happened. They didn't happen in the way that I had thought they were going to happen, but they happened. And one of them obviously was my relationship with you. That was, a huge one for me. Yeah. And then also, I always wanted to have 2 children. I always wanted kids, and I wanted a couple of them. And I was blessed with 2 children. And so there are things that, now it didn't happen the way I planned it, because I planned that I was going to have them at a certain age. I was going to get married at a certain age. I was going to have the kids at a certain age. It didn't work out that way. But my desire of having children was met. Yeah. And my desire of having a life partner was met. And those are just 2 things. I mean, there's so many other things, but
that's
just
terrific.
to give that, an example.
Yeah. And it's just the ability for us, for each of us as humans, to navigate choices and to make choices that's our amazing power right there. That's just an amazing power. And within each of us, our consciousness is continually evolving. So it's evolutionary. And through our choices, we guide our consciousness. So, for example, we can choose caring, loving.
Yep.
We can choose to be nurturing and to be considerate. We can choose things which show consideration, empathy. Or, for example, we could choose fear, self-centeredness, we could choose to have it, envy, to have it all about me.
Jealousy is another one.
And
too.
those choices will, over time, guide our consciousness and evolve our consciousness in different directions.
It is so true. When you start for me, I'll just use myself as an example when you're talking about the anger and all that
Sure,
other
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and the envy and the jealousy and all of those things. The shame, the blame, guilt, all of that. Very low vibration. Those are the things that I definitely was living. And when I started investing a little bit of time in myself, actually taking care of myself, and I started working with affirmations and meditation, that's when the path started to not be so narrow.
Yeah.
It started to kind of open up a little bit, where I was able to see that I had other choices that I could make.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started making other choices because of what I was doing for myself, which was creating boundaries that were healthy for me.
Yeah.
It was also listening more to my intuition and my gut instead of what everyone else was telling me to do. I really started trusting myself, and that was a big one. And clearing out the negative self-talk I had in my mind, I had a choice. I could continue that, or I could, well, how can I reframe it? How can I flip it? How can I make this something that is a lesson and I can learn from, not do it again and make a different choice? And so it opens up that way. That's how it was for me.
Interesting how these choices can have an impact throughout all your existence. Like over great distances in time, your choices can make such a difference.
Right.
And it can change your pathway, change your journey.
It has.
Yeah.
It definitely has. Even my relationship with my family members has changed tremendously. They're much healthier and everyone's happier. And that's you would think, putting up all these boundaries is like, oh my gosh. But what you're doing is you're actually releasing that codependence, and you're releasing others to be who they are. And you're also accepting them for who they are as well, and yourself, and valuing who you are in that moment, and valuing the other person.
When we put it all together, when mind, body, and consciousness they're all generating together, what they're generating is this evolution. They're generating this change, this growth. That's what we call growth, right?
Right, absolutely.
So if a person, like if you want to be healthier,
Okay.
so first be very specific. For example, what we were just talking about, if you have an addiction
Yeah, the smoking.
or a habit like habit like smoking,
Yeah.
so your body is affected immediately by nicotine, and over the long term use by harmful particles that are generated from the smoke that enter your lungs and cause harm over time.
Right.
So your body is that's how your body's affected by that habit.
Right.
Your mind, your mind reasons about it and rationalizes the act of smoking. It even makes up bargains with yourself. I remember when I smoked, I used to make bargains with myself about, I would smoke on the way to work. And so at one point I said, well, I'll just have one on the way to work. I'll cut it down, and that'll be my, it's just all these bargains going on.
Yep.
Right. And the consciousness part of me, the consciousness part of you, is where you're aware of that behavior and you're manifesting that behavior with your feelings and your commitments to that behavior. That commitments to the act.
Yep.
So whether it's smoking or any sort of habit that you have that you want to change, there are feelings and commitments that you've consciously made to that.
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
That need to be in line with your mind and your body. And in the case of us smoking, those commitments that we were making with our consciousness wasn't in line with our mind, with our body, and our mind was actually rationalizing it.
Correct. Right. Because I think deep inside we knew it wasn't good for us.
Of course.
Right? We knew it was harmful, but we're like, oh, we only do it a little bit. I only smoke 7 a day. I'm not like a heavy smoker. Like I'm just doing this, and that's the rationalizing and making it quote unquote okay. I'm not as bad as, and there's your comparison. Of course, we bring that into play instead of, well, what about you? It's not about anybody else, but it's about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you truly desire a healthier existence, it's only a matter of aligning that thought from your mind with what your body requires, what your body is asking for, what your body needs. And then your consciousness will make it happen through the concept of realizing who you are, who you want to be, who you aspire to be.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be a little challenging to visualize. Like, well, who do some people don't even, like me, I didn't even know who I wanted to be. What did I want to be? What did I really want in life? And a lot of the things that I was doing was me mimicking the people that have been in my life. So I was picking up all of the behavioral cues and habits from mainly my mom, some from my dad as well, because my mom was my main caretaker. So I got some of those habits from her, and then of course you have peers and you pick up habits from your peers because you want to fit in. So all of this stuff, it's not like you're born with, oh, I'm a smoker, when you're born. Right. These are behaviors that are taught, and you're learning them, and you're taking them in as a child and growing up. And it doesn't have to be just smoking. It could be other things too. I'm just using that as the example because we both had that happen in our lives. So that right there.
Yeah. I mean, it could be eating.
Yeah. It could be anything.
It could be an eating disorder. It could be anything. Gambling, nail biting, whatever it is.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
And so all of these behaviors are learned, and it's like, well, I did all this stuff because this is what I was learned. And it wasn't until I started breaking the codependent piece of myself with those identities, with all of the stuff of the smoking and, the eating issues and whatever else was going on, that stuff, and letting that go. I just didn't want to be that person. I decided that's not me, actually. That's someone else. And I don't have to identify that way any longer being a smoker. I don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. I choose to be a non-smoker.
Yeah.
And
you see yourself that way.
Absolutely. I
conceptualize it.
And now it is. Yeah. And I brought it to life to who I want to be. And that is such a feeling of freedom and liberation from being tied into a habit or a construct that just wasn't suiting my needs anymore. It wasn't actually who I was.
What a gift and a blessing. And just, I am so grateful for the fact that each of us has free will.
Yes.
That we are able to make these choices for ourselves. It's a beautiful and wonderful gift.
Yeah, and it's within these choices that we build and mold our own character in this world. We get to create and cultivate our consciousness through the actions of our mind and body. And we do the same for our mind and body with our consciousness. It's just a beautiful reciprocal relationship.
Yeah. We often think of mind, body, and consciousness as three separate and distinct things. We'll often try to work on one or the other, but in fact, each of us as a whole are all three at once working together.
Right.
And so that's such a cool concept. And once you experience it on that level,
it opens avenues for being able to do it with other things in your life, and you can even dive deeper into things that you want to manifest and change within yourself and in your life, and how you really want to live. You can actually create it because overcoming a habit like that is so powerful, and then you see that power you have within you, and you can just up level it every single time. Yeah. It's amazing.
So you can be whomever you want to be.
Yes, you are absolutely able to do that. You're invited to join us at htnforyou.com, where you'll find others like you who are learning, building, and cultivating wellness and self-care practices for a truly individual and healthy lifestyle.